Well, we're about to learn some fruits that break the rules. Well, the rule they break is, well, first off, not being ripened ovary containing seeds. But let's review um, some nice law-abiding fruits that are simple fleshy fruits from a flower with one ovary, ripened ovary containing seeds. A really common fruit type is called a berry. It's fleshy throughout. It can have one seed, but usually has more than one. And um, some things that aren't usually called berries are berries, like tomatoes and grapes and bananas. Some things that have berry in the name are indeed berries, like blueberries. Some things that have berry in their name are not berries, like strawberries. So the loosely applied terms, not so useful. In strictly applied terms, they're fleshy throughout. Another type of fruit that is widely distributed in the wild world and also pretty important in the grocery store is a drupe. A drupe is a stone fruit. It's got a pit. It's what that is a single seed surrounded by a bony endocarp. The rest of the fruit is fleshy. The outside pericarp slash exocarp and the fleshy middle interior, the mesocarp. Drupes, very well known in the grocery store, including a bunch that are in the same family, in the rose family, the genus Prunus, which includes peaches and apricots and nectarines and cherries. And there's other drupes in the grocery store, like, well, I can think of avocados, and it's very common in nature. It's a nice fruit that often gets uh, mistakenly called a berry. A kind of an oddball that I kind of like because mostly because I like the name Peepo. It's fun to say. It's a berry with a leathery rind around it. It's only found in one family, the gourd family, and it's got a lot of other peculiarities as well. So it's kind of nice to know that a gourd is something special. But let's move on to the rule-breaking oddballs here. And the rule-breaking oddballs, the rule that they're breaking is that instead of being a ripened ovary containing seeds, they're many ripened ovaries that disperse together. And there's two general situations in which this happens. And one of them is called a multiple fruit, where each one of the units comes from an individual flower. And so when the plant is in flower, there's a lot of small flowers that are clustered together in one spot. It's an inflorescence type called a capitulum, or a head. It's a head-like inflorescence. And when you have a multiple fruit, you have a multiple of some type of fruit. So, for example, this sweet gum, these 1, 2, 3, 4 things, each contain um, about a couple dozen capsules. They're dry fruits that split open to release a seed or seeds, and it's a multiple of capsules. An aggregate fruit, they can look very similar. They're generally head-shaped. They have a lot of individual little facets. This blackberry, each one is basically a little drupe, a tiny drupe. It's a druplet. So this is an aggregate of druplets. The difference is, you'll recall that when we learned about gynoecium types, that one of the gynoecium types is a apocarpous gynoecium. So here's a receptacle, and these stigma-style ovary units that are on the outside of the receptacle. So this is basically a sketch of an apocarpous gynoecium. This is one. So the thing here, this is one flower, and when it develops into a fruit, it becomes, and these little units all stay together. It becomes an aggregate fruit, and that's what a raspberry or a blackberry is. If we can draw, it's gonna be hard to draw because it's gonna look the same. But if we draw an inflorescence, so this is the stalk of a bunch of flowers, and it might be sort of a swollen thing. Now we have a bunch of individual flowers here. I wonder why that happens. A bunch of individual flowers here. Each one of these is, these are flowers. This is an inflorescence. It's a cluster of flowers. and exclamation point, make it seem interesting. The type of inflorescence is a head-like inflorescence called a capitulum, and it becomes multiple. And so these guys can look really similar. You're going to have to know how they derived in order to tell them apart. I bet you could figure it out with some detailed anatomical study, but not me. And here's the same picture again. So here's an example of multiple fruits. These are the aforementioned multiples of achenes. Whenever you see a multiple fruit, you have to say what it's a multiple of. And this is a multiple of achenes. It's a sweet gum. And each one, did I say achenes? How many times did I say achenes? Find achenes, replace capsules. It's a multiple of capsules. And, it's like they're speaking up for themselves. It's like, dude, no, we're capsules. What are you saying? And to go back in time, and if you look on the upper right here, that is a capitulum. It's a group of female flowers. Those are all stigmas you see there. The male flowers are elsewhere on the same tree. In fact, right now, as we speak, in May 21st, they're on the ground making the sidewalk all dirty and one more project I have to do. Annoying tree. Very nice tree, but annoying. And that's an example of a multiple fruit. It comes from an inflorescence. Many. Okay, so here we are looking at Blackberry. So Blackberry, you have a cluster of little tiny droops. And the blackberry, when it's in flower, these are individual flowers. And each one of these flowers in the center has a little stigma-style ovary unit. This is the Apocarpus gynoecium. It's got sort of a dome-like receptacle with a lot of carpels, separate carpels, spirally inserted. And when they get pollinated, they mature into drooplets. All those drooplets come, and each so-called raspberry comes from one flower, A1, aggregate. Great. So here's a little summary of that, but I do want to direct your attention to that. So here's a quick little summary that shows some nice little pictures. Aggregate fruits, a dome-shaped receptacle, all from one flower, multiple. A mulberry is another example of a multiple fruit. I wonder if that's why it's called mulberry. No, it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe the etymology has something to do with the aggregate nature of it, but I mean the composite nature of it. Okay, let's move along. Boom. Let's look at another kind of fruit that breaks the rules somehow. And two of them, actually. This is not the number of ovaries necessarily, although in the case of the aggregate/accessory fruit, i.e. the strawberry, there is that. But more importantly, the part of the fruit that's the dispersal enhancing portion, the part that takes up most of the mass, the sort of dominant part of the fruit, instead of being an ovary, is some other part of the flower. And a really good example of that is a pome. And famously, pomes include apples and pears and quince. Yeah, famous quince. An aggregate/accessory fruit, this is actually talking about one kind of fruit that is really, really peculiar. It's only found in one genus. And it's found in my kitchen right now, and it's really nice. It's a strawberry. So, what I just want to do is, I don't have a drawing of this, I just want to describe it to you, is imagine, if you will, making a section of an apple. And inside the apple is the core. It's like a 5-starred thing, and everything else around it is all fleshy. That core of the apple is the ovary. And the fleshy part is the hypanthium, maybe part of the receptacle. I'm not sure if I know or if they know. It's kind of a mess, but it's definitely not the ovary. The ovary is right in the middle there, and all the fleshy part is, to the best of my knowledge, hypanthium. And that's a really unusual fruit type. Also, if you notice this, I'd like to direct your attention, please, to the tip of this. This is a different kind of poem. I mean, this also in the rose family. Poems are only found in one subgroup of the rose family. And what I just drew 3 circles around is to show you the remnants of sepals. So when this was in flower, the ovary was underneath. So this plant had an inferior ovary. Poems have a stem end and a blossom end. You've heard that phrase. And it really is because the stem's on one side of the fruit, on the ovary when it's a flower, and the blossoms on the opposite side. They're on opposite poles. And that is what a poem is. Poems are unique to the rose family, but kind of important. And there's some members of the rose family that occur naturally that have poems, including this serviceberry and crab apples and mountain ash. This is the serviceberry in flower. So, what's up with the freaking strawberry? Well, the strawberry, it's kind of a combo of an aggregate fruit by having many fruits that are actually derived from one flower, but you wouldn't notice it because they are achenes and they're really dry and they look really little, and you might confuse them with seeds. Well, not anymore. So this is a picture of a strawberry in flower. It's a very typical member of the rose family with an elongate receptacle with spirally inserted many carpels, many stamens. It's a kind of it's an Apocarpus gynoecium. It's really nice. And these carpels mature into achenes. But instead of the achenes falling to the ground the way they do in some members of the rose family that are very similar to this, especially in flower, what they do is they hang out while the receptacle swells up and becomes really, really juicy. That little spindle-shaped thing where the carpels are inserted in the flower, it becomes puffy and juicy and beautiful. And these little jabberoos sunken into pits on the outside of the receptacle, they're fruits. They're one-seeded dry innocent fruits. They are achenes. This is a really unusual kind of fruit. It's kind of like an accessory fruit and an aggregate fruit at the same time. The accessory part is the swollen receptacle. The aggregate part is the many actual fruits that are dispersed all together. And this is only found in one genus, the genus Fragaria. It's a really, really cool, special strawberry thing. So, here's a little summary of these. Sometimes these are generally called false fruits because they kind of are not exactly fruits in the ripened ovary containing seeds sense. A poem is a simple fleshy fruit. In other words, it comes from one ovary. But, this definition says it's the receptacle that grows up around it. Okay, well, whatever it is, it's not the ovary that's fleshy. The ovary is deep inside there. It's the core of the apple. And look, they have a stem end and a blossom end. The aggregate / accessory, I don't know another name for it. Whoa, too weird. Many achenes sunken into pits on the outside of an enlarged receptacle. And this is something that's only found in one genus, Fragaria. So, we've learned a bunch about fruits. And I'm going to go, now that I'm done presenting this material, so I'm kind of ready for lunch. I'm going to go down and have a fruit salad. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's a fruit salad. What? You doubt? Well, think about the ingredients of the fruit salad. It's peanut butter, which comes from the peanuts, which you know are inside the fruit. Boom. Jelly, well, that's quite obviously a fruit. And the bread, it's made of wheat. Wheat is from a grain, which is the fruit of the grass plant. So peanut butter and jelly equals fruit salad. Fruits out.